In the quiet suburb of Oak Ridge, a chilling incident unfolded one fateful night that would forever change a family's life. It was 3 a.m. when the peaceful stillness was shattered by loud banging on the front door. The Johnson family was fast asleep, unaware that a man dressed in a security uniform, claiming to be a HOA officer, was demanding entry. His intentions were unclear, but his aggressive demeanor suggested something sinister. As the noise continued, 12-year-old Ethan, a bright and resourceful boy, woke up to the commotion. Alarmed and confused, he grabbed his father's old hunting rifle, which was kept for protection. Ethan had been taught about safety and responsibility, but in that moment of fear, instinct took over. When the door finally burst open, Ethan, believing his family was in danger, reacted with a split-second decision. He fired a warning shot, causing the intruder to stumble back in shock. The fake HOA cop quickly realized he had underestimated the situation and fled into the night, leaving behind a chaotic scene. The police arrived shortly after, taking statements from the shaken family. It was revealed that the man had no affiliation with the HOA and had been attempting to intimidate residents into complying with bogus community rules. Ethan's quick thinking had likely prevented a worse outcome, but the experience left the family rattled. They learned a valuable lesson about safety, vigilance, and the importance of trusting one's instincts, especially in the face of unexpected threats. In the aftermath, the neighborhood came together to discuss safety protocols, ensuring that such an incident would never happen again. The Johnsons, while grateful for Ethan's bravery, also recognized the need for open communication and education about true community safety. Thus, the tale of the fake HOA cop became a cautionary story in Oak Ridge, reminding everyone that not all who knock at your door have good intentions, and sometimes bravery comes from the most unexpected places. It was a quiet Friday night, the kind where the world seems asleep and the only sounds you hear are the crickets and the low hum of your air conditioner. My wife and I had gone to bed early after a long week. Our 12-year-old son, Ethan, was in his room, reading under his night lamp like he always did before sleep. At exactly 3:07 a.m., everything changed. There was a loud pounding on our front door, not a knock, but the kind that rattles your entire house. 3 hits, then silence, then 3 more. "Police, open up!" A man's voice shouted. I froze. My wife sat up instantly, her face pale. We hadn't called anyone. We lived in a small neighborhood with a private HOA, not exactly a place where cops show up unannounced. I walked toward the door quietly, my hand resting on the small gun safe by the entryway. Through the peephole, I saw something that made my stomach twist. A man in a black tactical vest labeled HOA security and a badge that looked off. He wasn't a cop. His uniform looked homemade. His car out front wasn't a police cruiser. It was an old black SUV with a blinking light bar taped to the top. I whispered to my wife, "Call 911 now." Before she could, the man kicked the door in, splintering the frame, shouting, "You're violating HOA code! Step outside!" It was chaos. My dog barked wildly. My wife screamed. And upstairs, Ethan woke up to the sound of the house being invaded. That's when everything turned around. Ethan had grown up learning gun safety from me, not to be reckless, but to respect it. I always kept a small airsoft training rifle in his room for drills, a realistic one, used to teach him discipline. But that night, Ethan reached under his bed for the home defense carbine I'd shown him how to handle. Safely, carefully, only for real danger, as the fake HOA cop stormed into the living room. Waving a flashlight around, Ethan came down the stairs. Steady hands, heart pounding. He shouted, "Stop right there!" The man froze, surprised to see a kid standing there with confidence. He turned toward Ethan, and that's when Ethan fired a warning shot into the floorboards. The sound shook the house, and the intruder dropped instantly, hands up yelling, "Don't shoot!" Within 2 minutes, real police arrived, guns drawn, lights flashing, sirens cutting through the night. The HOA cop was pinned to the ground, screaming that it was all a misunderstanding. But the truth came out fast. He was not a cop, not even HOA staff. Just a neighbor with a grudge. furious that I'd reported him for dumping trash near the lake. He'd stolen an old vest, printed fake HOA security patches, and planned to scare us into dropping the complaint. Instead, he was charged with armed burglary, impersonating an officer, and assault. When the real officers finished their report, one of them looked at Ethan and said, "Kid, you probably just saved your family. We changed our locks, reinforced the doors, and made sure our security cameras were always running." But one thing stuck with me. The sound of that fake cop yelling, "You can't do this to me, I'm HOA security!" as they dragged him away. Now, whenever someone mentions HOA rules around here, everyone just laughs nervously. Because that night proved one thing. Some rules are meant to protect, but others can get people hurt, especially when power goes to the wrong hands. The sound that tore me from sleep wasn't the usual suburban whisper. It was a violent, splintering crack, the sound of wood surrendering under extreme force. It was 3:03 a.m. My heart launched itself against my ribs. I froze for a second, listening, my body instantly flooded with adrenaline. Then came the voice, a deep, distorted shout from the hallway. "Police! Open up!" I was instantly wide awake, adrenaline overriding the shock. Police? At 3 in the morning? The alarm on my phone showed no emergency calls placed by me or my wife, Sarah. "Leo, stay put!" I hissed to my son's room at the end of the hall. Leo was 12, obsessed with survival strategy guides, and slept with an old airsoft pistol under his mattress, a birthday gift from his uncle that looked unnervingly real. I crept toward the front door, my bare feet silent on the hardwood. The voice was yelling again, more aggressive this time. "We have a warrant! HOA violation enforcement! Open this door now or we breach!" HOA violation enforcement? This wasn't the police. This was an insane escalation. We had a dispute with the HOA board over a non-compliant mailbox, but this was a siege. "Who are you?" I called out, my voice trembling despite my efforts. "I'm calling 911 right now." "You don't have time!" the voice roared, followed by the scraping sound of something heavy being dragged against the door. They weren't waiting for a response. They were preparing to breach. This was no longer a dispute. This was a home invasion by someone in a costume. In that split second, the calculus changed entirely. If I opened the door, I was vulnerable. If I waited, they would kick it in, and the ensuing chaos would leave Sarah and Leo exposed. "Leo, get to the safe room now!" I yelled toward the back of the house, hoping he'd obey. I turned, scrambling to grab the heavy fireplace poker, when I heard the second, final breach, not the door, but the kitchen window near the back patio. They were splitting up. I sprinted down the hall toward the living room just as Leo's door, the one I'd told him to stay behind, flew open. Leo wasn't in the hallway. He was standing frozen in his own doorway, small in the darkness, holding the airsoft pistol, and standing in the doorway to the kitchen, illuminated by the street lamp outside, was a hulking figure wearing a cheap, ill-fitting Navy tactical vest with a crudely stenciled badge that read, "Code Enforcement." He held a cheap plastic battering ram. He wasn't a cop. He was a zealot hired by the HOA. The man saw Leo. He stopped, a sneer of pure, ugly dominance crossing his face. Well, looks like we got a little trespasser." Leo didn't hesitate. The training he absorbed from those survival guides wasn't about aiming. It was about securing the perimeter. He raised the pistol with both hands, his knuckles white. The air gun snapped. It wasn't a loud pop. It was a sharp, hard crack. The plastic BB hit the intruder square in the neck, right under the ill-fitting vest. The man, high on adrenaline and expecting compliance, jolted backward as if struck by a rock. He stumbled over the leg of the coffee table, his plastic badge flying off. That momentary break in action saved us. The sound of the air gun, which I knew was not a firearm, sounded like a gunshot in the small house. It was enough to break the attacker's momentum. "Sarah, call 911! Tell them we've been attacked by a civilian wearing a fake badge," I screamed, rushing forward, poker in hand, to slam the patio door shut and secure the kitchen while the stunned officer struggled to get up. The aftermath, in a more calm voice. The real police arrived within 8 minutes, followed shortly by paramedics tending to a very angry, bruised, but ultimately uninjured man who was screaming about property rights and juvenile delinquency. Sarah was shaking violently, clutching Leo, who was pale but strangely resolute. He had a gun. "Dad," Leo whispered, his eyes wide. It looked real. He was coming in. I knelt down, pulling him close, the metal poker feeling cold and heavy in my hand. "You did the right thing, buddy," you defended the house. "That man broke into our home." The next few hours were a blur of statements and flashing blue lights. It turned out the HOA had hired an overzealous private security firm to enforce their emergency bylaw changes, and this man, thinking he was intimidating an errant homeowner, had chosen the loudest house on the street at the worst possible time. He had no legal authority, no warrant, and had crossed every line of trespass and assault the moment he broke that window. The official police report would